Hey folks, happy Friday. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week, and just welcome back to Fridays with Mike. I've got a kind of short episode for you guys this morning, talking about meaning of words and just how our words should have meaning and how important it is, how we speak to one another, and how we use our language. And I thought this was especially important just in the times we're living in, when everything from news and social media to just kind of everyday lingo and how we talk to one another, the little white lies that we tell, it's just it's kind of gotten out of control. And the English language is, and I guess in my opinion, is kind of falling apart. There's a whole generation right now, and I don't intend to poke at any generation because I think every generation has their own issues. But there's a whole generation right now coming up, Gen Z, who's kind of made up in their entire own language, and it's just kind of interesting to see. And I've been more in tune to it the more I've been in the Word and kind of trying to practice some of these things that I've been learning about. Really how watered down and washed out the meaning of words has become, and just how our general conversation has become so much more meaningless, and how our words and our conversation should be more meaningful with one another. This particular week, I was kind of inspired to do this because I had some of my own challenges this week. I won't get into the details, but just some crazy, frustrating things. And I just kind of lost my cool, lost my temper this week, and used choice words that I shouldn't have, and I really had to stop and reflect. And like I said, it really inspired me to do this episode today about words. And I'm going to get into it. I got 3 scriptures I want to share with you guys today, and we'll kind of talk about each one and go from there. And if you guys didn't see, I'll post it as well. But I shared my favorite smoothie this morning, did a little quick video on that. I think it was like 5 or 7 minutes, just about my favorite smoothie that I kind of power up with. And had one of those this morning. It's basically my lunch meal replacement today. I'll go to the gym on that and everything else. So if you get a chance, watch that video, and hopefully you guys will maybe try that smoothie out and enjoy it. All right, so the first verse I'm going to share. And by the way, I'm inside today because we've got a little cold front. It's like 59 degrees outside this morning, and the wind's out of the north, so the airplanes are just cruising over right now, and it is really loud outside. So all headed into DFW airport. So I'm in the house because way easier to hear me in here. But it is a beautiful morning out, and I wish I could be doing this outside, but weather had other ideas. All right, first verse this morning is Proverbs 17:27 through 28. He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is counted prudent. This verse, I think, in the world of information, in the world of everything going on out there, it's an important one to hear. Because there's just kind of too much coming at us, too many words, too many ideas, too many thoughts, and that's contradictory to a moving economy and people coming up with things, and that's fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about noise. Let's try to think, and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of everything I'm going to talk about today, by the way. And some people that may watch this, especially some of my oldest friends from like high school and stuff, may really get a kick out of this because if you know me and you've known me for that long, you know that I like to tell stories, and I've got some wild stories, and some people just love cracking up and laughing about my stories, and I get all flustered and want to be like, no, I swear that's what it was. But I'm going to talk about swearing and that kind of stuff here in a little bit too. But he who restrains his words has knowledge. And basically, what this is talking about is really waiting for the right time to speak, and using our words in a meaningful way, and speaking when it's fulfilling to others, and not just filling the air and filling everybody's ears with just talk. there's a such thing as too many words, and this is a verse that speaks to that. And I'm gonna read briefly the part here in the study Bible, but it says, "The fool who takes this advice is at least less of a fool. The fool who has no desire to learn, but desires only to air his personal opinions." And so I think that's something we can all learn from. Have you ever been in a conversation where you can just tell somebody's just waiting for their turn to speak, and maybe they don't even wait for their turn to speak? Like I said, I'm guilty of all of this today. So just know, as I'm preaching here, or speaking, not preaching, but speaking about this, that I'm not preaching, that I'm guilty of this, and I'm learning from this, and I'm growing in this, and I'm just trying to share this word and this wisdom, so that maybe we can all collectively, as a society, kind of just one person, however many views this video gets at a time, people will learn from this. If one person learns from this in this video, even myself included, it can have a positive impact. But think about that a little bit. Think about the time to listen. Being a good listener is very prudent. It's a very important part of life, and it's something we should all work on. And it's definitely something we should all work on more. We're all so excited to share our own opinion and what we know. And in a world where, we're full of TikToks and Reels and shorts on, YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and there's gazillions of bits of information coming every day. It's almost like it's too much, and too much is going in and not enough is going out. And so be careful what you're putting in, and think about what we're putting out. Think about the words that we're using, and just being able to listen to others. All right, so the second thing I want to talk about today is, this is in Matthew 5:33 through 37, the law of oaths. "Again, you have heard that the ancients were told, 'You shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord.' But I say to you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your statement be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything beyond this is of evil." And another translation I've heard there at the end, and this is probably the most common one that I see and hear, is, and Jesus said, "Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Anything beyond this is evil." And the purpose of that, I'm gonna read this down here because it's from a spiritual sense and a biblical sense, but then also in a community and societal sense, this is important. And you don't have to think long on this to understand why it's important for your words to have meaning. So I'm going to read down from the study version of this in the bottom, and it says, "Make false vows or perjure yourself. An oath taken in the name of the Lord were binding, and perjury was strongly condemned in the law. Every oath contained an affirmation or promise and an appeal to God as the omniscient punisher of falsehoods, which made the oath binding. Thus we find phrases like, 'As the Lord lives.' The emphasis on the sanctity of oaths led to the feeling that ordinary phrasing need not be truthful or binding. Jesus, however, taught that we should say and mean yes or no and never equivocate." So the point there is we should be able to have, part of the point is we should be able to have conversation and be trusted. If we say we're going to do something or not going to do something, with a simple yes and no. And our words should not be, we shouldn't be swearing to God and swearing on our mother's grave and swearing on all this stuff, especially for frivolous things like we do. And I'll use myself as an example. If I'm telling a wild story to my buddies and they're like, "Oh, Mike, you're full of it. That's crazy." And I'm like, "Oh no, I swear to God, I swear on this, I swear on that." Why would I bind myself spiritually swearing like that in a silly story and wasting my time getting irritated with it? The wise and fun and silly thing to do is just to take the joke, enjoy it, let the guys have a good rib at my story or something like that and move on. Okay. Other things that we do this everywhere. I see this all the time, everywhere we go, even good Christian people. I told you I do it myself. We run into this everywhere, is little white lies, swearing on things. If you can't go to, your friend's kid's birthday party or something, just tell them you can't. Tell them you're busy. Tell them you've had, whatever the truth is, tell the truth. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. And I think we've, as a society, and especially in the English language, we have just made it okay to tell lies. We've made it a habit. And, I feel strongly that it's denigrating our society in general, and in our words, and it leads to other things. It leads to too much speech, too much explanation. It leads to us getting in a habit of telling these lies. It leads us to getting in a habit of being defensive every time we say something, because we go into a conversation not thinking somebody's going to believe us, and that just leads to more and more and more of this, and we end up getting in a vicious cycle of this. So think about that as you speak. Be conscious in your language and in your words, and when you say something, and in your meaning of it. And if somebody doesn't believe you, oh well. I mean, if it's jokingly, fine, have fun with it. But if it's not, then that's their loss. That's their problem. And I just don't feel like we need to go into the swearing game and the oath game when it comes to that sort of thing. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope I've given some good examples on those things, swearing over silly things, an oath. When you swear on something and you bring the Lord into it, it should be something really important. And people might laugh at this, but I'm being really serious about this part of this conversation. It's like an oath should be, something goes down, and, I ask my brother to be the keeper of my family and my children after I'm gone. And he swears to me, he swears to God that he will. That's the type of oath, the binding oath that we should. And I know that's an extreme circumstance, but those type of oaths are the things that we should, if we are going to do it, that we should be doing. Meaningful oaths. Not just silly stuff like we see all the time. And kids right now, and I obviously have 5 kids. But kids right now are big on this. They've got, I can't even think of the Gen Z language right now, but it's like bet, swear. They've got this stuff where they're really going to make sure that somebody's telling the truth, or they're gonna promise or fact check somebody or something like that. And so it's not just a generational thing. My generation is guilty of it, and the generation coming up right now obviously has a big issue with it. So it's something I feel strongly that we need to be working on as a society. All right, the last verse I have for you guys today is Ephesians 4:26. I'm going to kind of jump around in here, but it's basically 4:26 through 32. And like I said, I'm going to hop around a little bit. So be angry, and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. I'm going to jump down here to 4:29. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for the edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. Jumping down to 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has forgiven you. I'm gonna jump into a little bit of the reading in the bottom here in the study version. There is an anger that is not sinful, but even this must not be allowed to stay and fester and give the devil an opportunity. So, strong verse there. I've got that highlighted, in multiple different colors and ways. And the reason for that is one of my sin patterns is anger. And I've always struggled a little bit with anger, and not a little bit. I've struggled a lot with anger. And I've spoken to you guys before when I gave my testimony, but anger was a vicious cycle, and there's different pieces of it, but anger is a part of it, and then guilt follows. And then what comes next after guilt? Well, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on what the circumstances are. But anyways, this verse is these verses are very important. And especially as Christians, we should strive to not use foul language, and we should strive to not use denigrating language, and we should strive to love one another and be patient and use words and language that are only good for other people. Even when people do terrible things to us, whether it's cutting us off in traffic, or having some kind of weird miscommunication in a grocery store with getting in the line, whatever the situation is, there's a gazillion situations. An email that may have not been toned right, or a text that may have not been toned right. There's all sorts of issues, misunderstandings and frustrations with somebody at work, or bosses at work, or a lower employee at work. All those types of things get frustrating. But as Christians, we are tasked, especially if reading this verse, by stepping back and taking a moment to let our anger subside, even pray about it, pray about our anger and pray about our frustration, offer that up to the Lord, and not let the devil take hold, not let something fester. A really, really good example of this is with your spouse. Ladies, with your husband, men with your wives. I'm especially guilty of this. If I've been wronged, it kind of depends on the circumstances. I rarely give immediate reaction. A lot of times, things will fester with me over a period of time. It could be weeks. And I keep thinking about it because I'm a problem solver, and so I'm trying to think about how to resolve this. Well, sometimes if I can't come up with a solution, I'll get really angry, and that will spill over, and then later on I'll have an explosion. And that's something I've been working on extremely in the last few years, of really not letting that happen in my life anymore. And it did happen this week. It just things just kept piling on, and I finally just exploded. And use foul language and everything, and now I feel guilty about it. But instead of taking that guilt and feeling guilty about it for a long time, I prayed about it, went to the Lord with it, offered it up to Him, and I said, Lord, help me through this, guide me through this. And lo and behold, here I am today, talking to you guys about these verses and everything. So, but that's especially important, like I said, with your spouse, is you don't want to let things fester with your spouse. And that's probably one of the easiest places that we allow that to happen, and we allow the devil to creep in, is when we don't handle things appropriately like that. And I love the part of this right here where it says, be angry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset about something, but we have to handle it the right way. We have to offer that up to the Lord, pray about it, breathe, take a time out, go for a run, go for a walk, hit the gym, do something that you need to do to let that anger and that frustration out. And yet do not sin, okay? So you can be angry and not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity, all right? By no means are me and my wife perfect at this. We both have a tendency to let things, it is our tendency to let things fester or hold a grudge for a period of time. So we have to work at this. It's something that we have to work on together, and not going to bed angry with each other. And no matter what has happened, even if we haven't maybe figured out how to get through something yet, at least tell each other, I love you, kiss and make up kind of thing before bed. Never let the sun go down on our anger. And I think that's just a super important lesson for all of us. And I wish I had learned it, many, many years ago. So the other thing is, let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth. Foul language, guys in construction work and mechanics, and just, guys being guys in general out there, we have a tendency to just let it rip, man. Just it's almost like you come to a work meeting or something like that, and one guy drops an F-bomb or some other foul word, and then we all just kind of start doing it. We all jump into it, and it's just some emphatic language that we like to. It kind of elevates our status in the meeting, or taking us seriously with that emphasis, and it's something that is just not needed. And I actually feel better about my conversation pieces and meetings and language and everything when I don't do that, and I'm able to make it through a meeting without or some kind of emphatic conversation without doing that. And it's really something that we should work on as Christian men, especially. I feel like men mostly have this issue. I know some women do too, but really try to keep our language in check. That emphatic language kind of goes back to the other things I was talking about the foolishness and saying too much or saying things too emphatically. We should have a time for when that language needs to be emphatic. And so, like we all know the story of the boy who cried wolf. Well, when we do have something serious and we are using emphatic language, well, then everybody knows that it's serious. I get emails, and I'm not trying to be political right now, but I get emails all the time about Jack Smith goes nuclear with such and such court case, and it's like, what does nuclear mean? I mean, I thought nuclear was a bomb that we kept in our arsenal. Why are we talking about this in court cases? Massive good news and massive bad news, and it's like, so what does massive mean? And you read the news article, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, this is nothing new. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or this guy knows what he's talking about, and it worked out. Okay, great. But we, in social media and the media, I think is where this is honestly stemmed from, and it's horrific. It is super frustrating because you get people out there all the time. You should just be presenting the news, take it or leave it. But they put this massive emphasis on it, and I'm using that language to make sure I'm driving a point home, but they put this massive emphasis on something with the language it's like clickbait, and to draw you into it. And it's like nothing. I mean, there's nothing nuclear about this. It's like, okay, it's another piece of the trial. It's another piece of the case. Well, that's carried over to our day-to-day lives, and it's carried over to how we talk to one another. And what is it? I mean, 20 years ago, if there was some major event going on in the world, it would have much more meaning. But we've been so desensitized through language and through all the things that we absorb and see, that words have become, almost meaningless. And that's what I'm really trying to point out here, drive home here with this, in this discussion this morning is, let our words have meaning. The things that we say should have meaning. Our conversations with our neighbors should be meaningful. Our conversations with our children, with our spouse, with our loved ones, with family, with coworkers should be meaningful. We should walk away from these conversations with some kind of meaning, whether it was a fun conversation or a funny conversation, if it was solemn or sad. If we're sharing something with one another, we shouldn't have to be emphatic and sound foolish to be able to get others to understand what we're trying to say and or how we feel about something. So I could go on and on about this morning. This literally could be an hour-long episode. And I was actually really going to try to make this about 15 minutes today, but as you can see, there's a lot to this. So it's jumped up here to almost 24, 25 minutes. But I'm going to leave you guys with that and with those thoughts. These are some great verses. Write them down and try to memorize these or put them in your journal. They're really handy to have, and remember, especially when you're when you're dealing with frustrating things. And it just, like I said, I wish I hadn't have gotten to the point of exploding this week, but I did, and it led to this. And God's timing is perfect, and His ways are not our ways. And it's something I'm going to put back in practice and back in motion. And I hope how I've shared about this morning will kind of help folks out there and think about how they can apply this in their life or to their family and share this message as well. As always, I love you guys. I think I've shared before, this being on camera and doing all this isn't my forte. It was out of my comfort zone, but I've grown to love it. I've learned a lot through it and sharing, and I just really appreciate the folks out there that are listening, and especially taking the time to share and like, or subscribe and follow on YouTube. And hopefully there's more good stuff to come. But thank you all again. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful Friday, and I hope you'll have a wonderful weekend. If you're in the Texas area, we've got some storms and stuff coming in this weekend, so stay safe. Again, I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks. Mike out.